Hey guys, this is a Patreon Q&A. If you would like to be in next week's video, simply check out the link in the description and you can sign up there. I'm also going to be going into spoilers for all of the series I'm going to be talking about. Little Ferrari asks, do you think Blast will be evolved at all in the Neo Heroes arc for the manga, since we saw a good amount of him in the Monster Association arc? I only ask since Blue gets introduced in that arc for the webcomic. I don't see how they would, since Blast is mainly tied to God, but we didn't think we would get him that much in this arc, so anything can happen. Indeed, anything can happen at this point in the manga's continuity, and it's very possible that Blast will show up in the next arc, and I say next arc loosely because Blue and the Neo Heroes being the focal point of the story isn't necessarily going to be like directly the next arc, but it's definitely going to be the next big long arc that happens in the manga, if of course it does continue to follow the blueprint that the webcomic has established at this point. Before I go any further, let me just explain who Blue is in case you're unaware or you just need like a refresher. So long story short, after the Monster Association arc and all the stuff with Garo wraps up, it's revealed that a rival to the Hero Association is made, and this is called the Neo Heroes. They're pretty much doing the same thing as the Hero Association, but in a more structured and progressive way. This organization also has like their own version of the S-Class, which they call the Neo Leaders, and the leader of the Neo Leaders is this teenager by the name of Blue, and when we first see Blue, he's revealed to be the son of Blast. Now currently, as of this recording, it hasn't really been fully confirmed that he is in fact the son of Blast, because believe it or not, we haven't seen Blast real time in the webcomic yet. Right, he actually shows up in the manga before he did in the webcomic. In that continuity, we still have only seen him in flashback. But in my opinion, at least, I think Blue is the legitimate son of Blast. Not gonna bore you with the Egyptian mythology stuff that they're based off of, but that kind of confirms it, if not for the fact that they both have like the same type of eyes. And I know that it's revealed that Blue is wearing contacts, but I don't think those contacts are necessarily giving him the aesthetic of Blast's eyes. I think that's more so going to go into the corrupt organization storyline that's going to be revealed if the webcomic continuity ever returns. Aside from just the eye similarity, Blue does seem to have some kind of energy manipulation abilities. And even that in itself is kind of polarizing in the webcomic community, I guess you could say, because he is wearing a suit after all. And one of the aspects of the Neo Heroes is that they're all given these power suits. And I won't go into my conspiratorial take on them because I've already talked about it ad nauseum in plenty of videos. Some people seem to think that all of Blue's abilities come from this suit, and I just don't think that's the case, because if that was, then why aren't the other Neo Heroes given suits that are this powerful and have these type of abilities to them? Now, I do think that Blue certainly uses this suit as a conduit for his abilities, but I don't think they exclusively come from the suit itself. Now, like I said, Blue seems to have some kind of energy manipulation ability, and as we've seen from Blast, he kind of has the same thing, which means that Blue very likely hereditarily received some kind of ability from Blast. And so far from our time with Blue, it seems like he may have not even met Blast yet, and if he did, he met him when he was like a small child or something. It's really up in the air at this point, but considering that we now know what Blast has been up to, you know, protecting the world from God essentially, and trying to keep the cubes intact, as well as the dimensional seal that is allegedly holding God back from entering into our reality. That's the reason why he hasn't been in Blue's life. But that being said, I do think they will of course ultimately meet, and I think it might have to do with Saitama, because right now in the webcomic there seems to be this inevitable confrontation between Blue and Saitama. Blue is pretty much the only person besides Genos that saw Saitama saving a My Mask after it was revealed to the world that he was actually a monster. And given that Blue is like, you know, all about justice and doing the right thing, he saw Saitama as basically aiding and abetting a My Mask, who is essentially like the world's most wanted man at this point, because he's been like a super powerful monster hiding in plain sight this whole time. So I wouldn't be surprised that when Blue ultimately tries to fight Saitama, or something along the lines of that happens, that's when we see Blast show up. Now, if that happens in the webcomic, Blast's introduction is going to be way different because he has a lot of explaining to do at that point, but in the manga it'll be more cohesive because we've already been established to what's going on with Blast. More so, we'll just have to find out who Blue's mother is, and if Blue is somehow related to Tatsumaki and Fubuki, because I do think that there's something going on there. I don't know necessarily if Blast is like Tatsumaki and Fubuki's father, but he might be like their uncle or something like that. So CabbaFruit has a theory that relates to the recurring redraws that we've seen in One Punch Man. And it's that every time there's like a big redraw in the story, it's because God has basically reset time so that a specific timeline would occur as to where he wins and Saitama loses. So first of all, CabbaFruit, let me just say that Murata doesn't write the One Punch Man manga. One does. This is the same guy who's made Mob Psycho 100. Murata is just simply the artist for the manga. He gets storyboards from One and then he adapts them. As for why there are so many redraws, well, it's because One Punch Man is kind of unique in the sense that One and Murata get to publish the manga chapter whenever they want on the Tonari website. And sometimes One makes mistakes, or he just feels that maybe he could just have the story go into a different direction. Really, we don't typically see this happen in like Jump or whatever because the chapters are handed in like I think 2 or 3 weeks in advance. As to where with One and Murata, they kind of just upload the chapter like nearly as soon as they're done with it. So after the chapter has been uploaded, they basically have all of the time that's going to take until the volume for that chapter is going to be released on what they ultimately want to do with it. Because once it's released in the volume, that is like the final version of it. And also I'll say that your theory on God reverting time equating to these redraws is very interesting, and it would be extremely meta. And as far as I know, nothing this fantastical has ever happened in any kind of battle manga, but I just don't think that's the case. I think it's literally what we see is happening. One is just simply realizing that he just wants to take the story in a different direction, and there's just a big overhaul in the story. ArchbishopM asks, out of the 5 series you cover, what disaster levels do you think their MCs would get? I haven't done this in a while. So Goku and Saitama for sure are above God. I mean, we've known that for a while now, but I think the latest 2 chapters definitely confirms that if there was any kind of doubt. Deku, I would say at this point, he's like a dragon for sure, but I think by the end of My Hero, he might be on the borderline of God, depending on how powerful he becomes. Luffy, with Gear 5, I think he's certainly a dragon at this point. I mean, his rubber manipulation abilities are truly insane. Like, you could translate that to so many other series and he would be so devastating to somebody that's not like, a universe buster or something. And as for Yuji, he hasn't really gotten that much progression, to be honest. I mean, he's probably like a demon maybe, but he still has a lot of time to grow, especially because, we're coming to the ending of the series. Fernando P asks, what is your opinion about My Mask's nerf on this arc? Do you think he is not going to be that important in the manga? And also, how strong do you believe he's compared to the S-Class? So I think he's strong enough to be an S-Class for sure. He's not like one of the strongest ones, but I think he certainly deserves to be an S-Class hero if, he wanted to be one. But I don't think he's necessarily being nerfed in this arc. If anything, we were given more insight into him being a monster than we were originally in the webcomic. But I do think he's going to be super important. I mean, he's really integral to the next arc of the story, with him being exposed to the world and Saitama, hiding him. That's for sure going to happen in my opinion. And I do think My Mask still is, one of the most important character in the series, and he always will be. William H asks, what's your favorite anime music video? If I had to pick one to show someone who's on the fence about watching anime, I'd go with Anime Mix Whatever It Takes by Royal Grindy. So, to be honest, I don't really have one. I haven't really been into anime music videos since I was like really young, like when I first got into battle manga. Like when I first got into anime and all that stuff, it was like the time of the big 3. And I certainly did watch anime music videos around that time, but I just don't remember which ones. I wish I did so I could tell you, but I'm sorry. One Punch Man Needs More Watchdogman asks, of the S-Class heroes, how would you rank them all against Garo's forms? So rather than ranking them all individually, I can kind of just put them in the groups here because they're all more or less relative to each other's power at that point. So I would say like the lower tier of the S-Class, like the Metal Bats, Tank Top Masters, the Purries, the Pig Gods, kind of Zombie Men, they really wouldn't fare too well against pretty much any form of Garo, to the point of where he was fighting against Darkshine, because Darkshine is kind of like the borderline there, right? Like, he destroyed Darkshine before he even had like the monster shell take him over. So we're pretty much going to have to compare the S-Class heroes to Darkshine's level of power at that point. So once Garo comes to the surface, we could see that Bang can kind of fight against him, but once Bang takes some clean shots, he pretty much goes down. And at that point, there's not really many S-class heroes that are on the level of Bang. So once Garo like gains his consciousness back, then he's just, you know, taking on Flashy Flash and Platinum S at the same time, and, you know, pretty much taking them both down. I mean, he straight up kills Platinum S. So from that Garo on to like the Gargoyle Garo, and then of course Cosmic Fear Garo, so only really like the theoretical full potential of Metal Knight and Tatsumaki would maybe be able to stand up to something before Cosmic Fear, but then once we get past that and we go into Cosmic Fear, then only Blast can take him on, as we've seen. Geruda asks, what do you think about Usopp inheriting the Forest Fruit after Green Bull's eventual defeat? Assuming he ever is, of course. So that would be pretty crazy, actually. And I wouldn't be mad at it if it happened, but it just seems really unlikely at this point. Not just unlikely that Green Bull will be defeated or die and then someone else gets his fruit. That could totally happen. But just Usopp getting the Forest Fruit, or just really getting a fruit at all. I think at this point in the story, all of the Straw Hats who don't have Devil Fruits are probably just going to stay that way. Like, I'm not even sure if Usopp would necessarily even want to eat a fruit, because his ultimate character arc is being like a brave warrior of the sea, right? And I think he feels that he kind of needs to do that just by himself without the assistance of a Devil Fruit or something. But I could be totally wrong and he winds up getting the Forest Fruit or something, which, you know, would be applicable to him considering, you know, the style that he's had post time skip. Nathan W asks, assuming you're still in the Drive Night is the traitor camp, am I still in it? Come on, I think I kind of invented it at this point. Could you explain what you believe Metal Knight's goals are? Is he good but just pragmatic and unfriendly, or is he also up to something nefarious? So yeah, I think that's pretty much what's going on with Metal Knight. He is good, as he says he is for justice, but he's just pragmatic and unfriendly and like antisocial. As for what his ultimate goal is, it's never really been made explicitly clear, other than through the lies of Drive Knight, of course, but I think there are some truth in those lies. When Drive Knight says that Metal Knight wants to take over the Hero Association, he says because, you know, he is doing it for evil reasons and to ultimately take over the world, but I don't think that's the case. But I do think he does want to take over the Hero Association, but just so he can reform it. Obviously, we've seen throughout the story it's very corrupt, and I think he wants to get rid of that corruption and turn the Hero Association to what it truly should be, in like an organization for justice. Popcorn Chicken asks, do you think all the heroes died from Garo's cosmic radiation? If not, who do you think would be immune or heal fast enough to live? So the only people who were really immune to it was Blast and Genos. Maybe Tatsumaki, if she was conscious, could have been immune to it if she put like a barrier around herself. That remains to be seen. But even Amai Mask and Zombie Man were pretty much shown to have died from it, so not even their regeneration was good enough. MajinBoros asked, did Saitama just open a multiverse? Since we know he went back in time and stuff, what I was thinking was going on is the reason why Saitama merged with the present day Saitama is because there can only be one Saitama in existence, hence why Genos' core didn't just pop back into Genos, and proving that the other Boros we see could be from another universe, helping other universes defeat God. So I don't think so. If there could only be one Saitama in the universe, then there would only be one. Meaning that when Saitama from the future came back to the past, that means that he would be the only Saitama there. And that's definitely not the case. And as for the other Boros, which I guess we're calling Boris at this point, like I've said before, I don't think he's a Boros from another universe, simply because he looks very different than Boros. And, you know, not all variants look the same, of course, but I think he's more so just a member of Boros's planet, and I just doubt that we have multiverse stuff going on at this point. If anything, we have multi-timeline stuff going on. DFGHulk has a theory that Drive Knight is actually Boros from the future, and that Metal Knight ultimately did find Boros's body in the wreckage and then turned him into the Mad Cyborg, who was ultimately influenced by God during the construction of himself, and he basically got the same kind of power that Garo did, and he used this power to go back in time and infiltrate the Hero Association and become Drive Knight so that he could ultimately make the organization. This is one of the most wild theories I've ever heard, and I don't know how I would feel if this was true. This would be pretty crazy. even for One Punch Man. I mean, like, extremely crazy. I personally just don't think this is the case, but I think you should probably make a YouTube video about this, to be honest. I used to say that a lot, like a couple years ago, whenever people will come up to me with theories like this, but I more so think now that if you have any kind of drive to create content, I think you should definitely put some time into making a YouTube video about this, because I think a lot of people would find this very entertaining, even if it was just like a what if video. Fez asks, what are your thoughts on Green Bull saying, I don't want to pick a fight with you, not yet anyways, specifically the not yet part? Yes, that's a great question, because Blackbeard kind of says like the same thing, right, at Marineford, and I'm not entirely sure. I think Green Bull might know that Shanks is like a celestial dragon or something, because Aki Inu, I think he may have known too. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if like everyone at like the highest level may know that Shanks is like a celestial dragon too. So when he says not yet, maybe he means like once he gets the okay from the world government to go after Shanks, or once he has enough backup possibly. Like clearly he knows that he can't take down Shanks by himself, especially, you know, if Shanks has his crew with him. So it could be one of those things, or it's just something else entirely that we're just not privy to yet. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. I want to thank all of my patrons for continuing to support me. I really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. And once again, if you would like to be in next week's Q&A, simply check out the link in the description. You can sign up there. And if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.